Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. I'm here today to talk about various jobs in the animal industry because I've had a lot of people ask me, well, if I don't do what you do, then how can I work with animals and not be a vet? Because a lot of people don't want to take it that far. So I sat down yesterday and tried to come up with as many animal-related jobs as I could, and the species are intermixed, but this is what I came up with in case you or any of your children are interested in working with animals more. And of course, there's always volunteering. I'm not even gonna broach that. You could be, and this one also takes a lot of training, an animal rights lawyer, because things like dog fighting rings or shark finning or animal rights via transportation and those used for food. You could be a lobbyist too to help change the laws or protest, things like that. You could be on the opposite side of the spectrum. You could be a pet sitter. And there are different ways to go about it. You can either work through a company or you can be an at-home pet sitter, meaning people bring their pets to you, but a lot of times that's more challenging because you have to watch how your pets interact with their pets, and a lot of times interspecies don't really mix. But in the case if you are a pet sitter, you do have to have a car, so there are some that are travel-based, some that you can do from home, so there's always that. You can work at a barn, and whether that's barn staff or helping with the horses, or if there's other animals at the barn like sheep or donkeys or goats or what have you, then there's lots more animals to work with. I know Lionel's Petting Zoo on McCowan Road. I worked there for 5 years when I was really little, and they have alpaca and deer and all kinds of animals, and that was the highlight of my childhood, is being able to work there. I did the pony rides there for a few summers, so that was really fun. You can be a specialty trainer. So in the case of dogs, it could be agility, it could be dock diving, it could be a show dog. In terms of horses, it could obviously be any of the various different sports that they do, meaning hunting, the cross-country one, which I think is really cool, endurance training, dressage, anything like that. But again, those take a lot of training, and typically people grow up with those backgrounds or know somebody. So that's something else to think about. There's also basic obedience. So if you want to be a professional dog trainer, there's typically 1-year programs you can take for that to learn the proper way, but do make sure you take it from a school that doesn't use punishment, because that's not the ideal way for them to learn. You can be a dog walker, and I've also done this one. But again, it depends whether you want to do it yourself and do it in your area or work for a company that will send you out to different houses. But it also depends on the style of dog walking you want to do, whether you want to do one dog at a time, whether you want to do group walks in town, group walks in nature, things like that, or specially abled pet walks. A lot of times they require having their medicine when you go and see them, so that's something else to think about. You can own, operate, or work at a doggy daycare or camp. So I actually know several people who own a doggy daycare, kennel, camp, things like that. And all the people who work there absolutely love it because they get to spend their days with animals and all the dogs are happy. There are also cat daycares, places like that, or people that will look after your horses while you're away. But typically, if you board at a barn, all the barn staff from that barn will look after your horse while you're away. You can be a rescue worker, so work for SPCA or one of the local rescues in your area and help people bring their pets back to them. So my suggestion, if you're going to do that, is know the safety risks, because a lot of time some of the wild animals can have diseases or conditions, and a lot of times they don't want to be captured, so sometimes that can be a little bit dangerous. But of course, you can work for animal control, and this week is Animal Control Officer Appreciation Week, which is why I'm talking about various dog and other pet jobs, because a lot of people don't know there's more than just being a vet or holistic vet. There are a lot more options out there for you. You can, of course, be a farmer and have animals. It can be a hobby farm or a productive farm if you have horses and cows and ducks and goats and chickens and whatever else you feel like having. That's always a good way to spend time with animals, whether you decide to eat them eventually or not. You can be an animal nutritionist or a scientist in that area, because a lot of progress is being made in that area. If you've seen the dog cancer series video that I did talking about Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib's video, the pet food industry is taking a really big turn, and so nutrition is becoming more and more important, and what you feed your pet ultimately determines, except in off-chance cases, how long your pet will live, how healthy they'll be, and their quality of life. So that's really something to heavily consider before you get a pet, is make sure you can feed them what you want to be able to feed them. You can, of course, do alternative therapies like I do, or teach them on top of the ones that I do, which, if you don't know, you can check out my Facebook page or my website. There's animal massage, there's physio therapy, so those in accidents, things like that. There's aquatherapy. Typically this is for pets with injuries or arthritis when they walk on a treadmill that's underwater, so it takes the pressure off of their limbs, which is actually really helpful in some cases. Acupressure or acupuncture, which takes quite a bit of training, I know, because I do acupressure. Or chiro, meaning a spine adjustment if they have a pinched nerve or something wrong with their vertebrae, or they twisted something. That's always a good way to go. You can be a therapy animal handler. So one of those people that takes the animal, dog or cat, typically, to a hospital, an old folks home, or a school to visit children, seniors, things like that, sick children. They also take them to university campuses sometimes, because during exam week and the week before, they would have therapy dogs come to the main hall, and all the stressed out students would pet them, and it would bring their cortisol levels down. That one's always fun. I don't think that one's a full-time thing, but if you're interested in getting into that, you can look into the St. John's Ambulance Therapy Animal Program. And I know they're mostly dogs, but I think they do have some cats too. I actually took Kaya to a retirement home once, and she's met quite a lot of children and toddlers, and she did very well. She sat with all of them and took pictures, so that was really nice. Of course, you can be a vet, a holistic vet, or a surgeon. Those are all, obviously, they take the most training, except for maybe an animal rights lawyer. That one takes quite a bit too. But you can work at a pet store or own a pet store. And a lot of the chains around here are bigger. There aren't a lot of small chain ones. I know there's Pet Value and Global Pet Foods here. We used to have another one, but it closed. And there's some specialty ones like Duke's in Uxbridge and Ajax that have more food. There's raw food ones specifically. But as long as the pet store near you carries the food that you need, because some carry raw and some have a smaller variety of raw, so that's something else to consider. But you get to help pet owners improve the lives and health of their pets. So that's a very rewarding job if you like scheduled shifts. Of course, there's the pet food industry. Other than being a scientist to determine what food is healthiest, you could be a health inspector at pet food companies and the factories to make sure that everything's up to par and that animals don't get infections or contamination of food products, make sure everything's packaged safely, and that the pet food companies aren't cutting corners and putting in really cheap ingredients. There's, of course, the competitive animals that do sports. So this is the agility, dressage, barrel racing, show animals, etc. It is hard to make that a career unless you're really good at it, so it takes a lot of practice. But if that's something that you want to pursue, then my suggestion is finding a really good trainer, which is another career, to help you with that. And of course, you'll have to consider that the maintenance of the animal and the health of the animal is also a big expense for a lot of these. You can own a pet-friendly restaurant. And these are newer because I think it was California that had, or New York, that had the cat cafe, where you can go in and all the cats in the place are adoptable. And you can sit and have your coffee. If you don't mind cat hair being in all the food and drinks, then that's something a little more out there if you want to start an animal-friendly place, but you do have to look over the safety regulations and things like that before you solidify it as a business. There's always being a researcher into things like alternative approaches, healthier medications with less side effects. There are so many research areas, but a lot of times, like Dr. Karen Becker said, the studies that get funded are the ones that have a drug at the end of the rainbow. Meaning, if the study works, they can market this drug to pet parents and make more money. So unless you have a lot of money to do the research yourself, or the research will be cheap, I wouldn't go that route unless you really, really love research, because it's going to be a hard road. Of course, there's always marine biology. Taking a total tangent from land animals, a lot of people are really interested in marine biology, and one of my best friends who lives in Winnipeg, she is considering marine biology, but it's a very interesting field, and there aren't a lot of areas around here to learn it, work it, practice it, because unless you're on a coast where there's lots of animals, marine animals, then it's not probable, let's say. And of course there's working at a zoo, if you don't mind looking at caged animals all day, but a lot of them can have habitat improvements, things like that, making sure their food is biologically sourced and available, making them work for their food so they feel more like they're putting in an effort, things like that, improving the quality of life for them. It's a very honorable position because I'm not really big on zoos. But anyway, there are probably a lot more careers in the animal field if none of those speak to you, but this was just to let you know that you don't have to be a vet or a holistic vet to work with animals in a capacity that serves you. But anyway, that's all I have to say for today. I'm not sure what the video will be about next week yet, because I've already talked about the weekly holidays, so I have to come up with something new. But I hope you have a marvelous rest of your week, and I will see you next Tuesday.